Yeah, I mean that'll happen when you take two. As it turns out.
I forgot. I forgot about it.
Oh, I haven't. I'm gonna take it to this day. I don't if it's got dextromethorphan in it, even like just the therapeutic doses. I've got a mental thing against it, mental block. I've got a bunch of pictures. Eventually, I'm gonna put some up so you can see this cabin I keep talking about. I don't know if people think I'm lying about it or not, but it is true and it is coming along. I just finished the door up. The door looks really cool. It's like maple with cedar and walnut accents on it. Super excited.
Um, so normally, what most people do is they'll work on a project for like 15 minutes, and they'll spend like 30 minutes taking pictures and uploading them to Facebook. So that's what you need
Yeah,
to start doing, Tony.
yeah. I've been working on it for like 6 months, and I've got pictures and I got video, but I have not uploaded. I have a just a moral aversion to Facebook where I can't do it. I can't visualize myself uploading anything to it because I don't care what those people think about what I'm doing. I want them to see it, but I don't want them to see what I'm doing.
You don't
Does that
want
make
them to
sense?
pretend. You don't want them to pretend like they care what you're doing.
I don't want to pretend like I care enough about them to show them what I'm doing. That they matter enough for me to upload those pictures there. I do want the Facebook praise. I want them to tell me how amazing it looks. I just don't want to go through the trouble of uploading pictures
Do you
for
get on
them
there
to
and
tell me.
check your notifications?
No,
I
I
don't. I
turned
hate.
notifications. I turned them off on my. I've turned off like all my notifications on my phone for everything.
Yeah, same.
Uh, I will Facebook if I'm selling something on the marketplace. I will go on. I will temporarily turn the messenger notifications on just so I can do that. And I turn it back off again. Yeah, my actually my divorce just went through finalized last week. I had a bunch of people get a hold of me like, "Oh, congratulations! It finally happened." Apparently, my ex had like posted a big thing about it on Facebook, which
Uh,
that's what she would do because that's where she receives her validation is from people on Facebook.
right.
So, and that's probably why I hate Facebook so much.
President Biden, Joe Biden, the new FDR did come out in support of the Kellogg striking workers.
And we know now that government by organized money is just as dangerous as government by organized mob.
Sort of for a second time. Let's see exactly what did he say. He said, "I am deeply troubled by reports of Kellogg's plans to permanently replace striking workers," Mr. Biden said in a statement. This is from the New York Times. He added, "Permanently replacing striking workers is an existential attack on the union and its members' jobs and livelihoods." Previously, for the same Kellogg strike, earlier in the strike, the labor secretary that he appointed actually went to join the striking workers on the lines. Walsh, this is Marty Walsh, the labor secretary. He's an ex-union member, actually. He is the first union member to lead the Department of Labor in more than 4 decades, and one of few labor secretaries to visit striking workers.
Well, that is interesting. That seems like a bit more than just a vacuous statement by Biden that someone else wrote that he's probably not even aware that he said. But yeah, actually going out there on the picket line for somebody at that level to come out and make, I mean, it is like it's not a minor labor dispute. It's like Kellogg's is being so blatant and brazenly anti-worker and completely unreasonable that it's kind of hard to be on their side. So it's not. I don't think it's a very hard stance that Biden's sticking his neck out to take it, but it is something. So.
But are people going to stop buying Kellogg's products? That's the real question. If they don't, then it doesn't matter. They'll replace these guys, and then unions are dead. I mean, that's the problem. If people don't actually care enough to not buy Kellogg's, it doesn't work. And when they own half the market share, they have half the market. There's two brands. There's General Mills and there's Kellogg's. That's it.
I was going to say, I think for the most part, people that use Kellogg's product probably don't know or don't care about the strike going on. Do you eat cereal?
Oh yeah, I sure as hell switch. I used to eat Special K protein, and I switched off of that to sort of generic bran flakes and General Mills products.
Oh, okay.
When the strike started, but
you actually switched because of the strike.
Yeah, absolutely. I always
Okay.
boycott these products. These fascists, dude. They're replacing the strikers. It's terrible. This is the same shit they did with the Heaven Hill Distillery strike down here. They started replacing the workers, replacing the striking workers. These right to work laws are bullshit, dude.
Yeah, I've never been fortunate enough to be. I don't know. I've never been in a position to where I've had a product that I use regularly have practices where I could boycott them. I guess I don't eat cereal. I don't drink.
You don't drink Heaven Hill?
No, I don't. I didn't think anybody really drinks or really ate cereal anymore. I figured that was like a kid thing and a sad adult thing.
When you're dieting, man, and you're really hungry, you get you a big mixing bowl, like a large mixing bowl, and you fill it up with, put some like some bran flakes or some fiber. What are the fiber ones I eat? Fiber One, I think. They're like little rabbit pellets, but they're mostly fiber.
Yeah.
Fill up the bowl with water, put a little bit of almond milk, and then a few drops of sweetener and some vanilla extract, a couple shots of protein powder, and that'll fill you up for the night, man. That's pretty low calories, high protein. I do that right before bed every night. But then I wake up and piss a million times. It's a lot of liquid, but it fills me up. I do want to point out that this is an important difference for all the people who don't want to vote, that think there's no difference between Democrats and Republicans. This is a big difference, man, for the unions especially. The Democrats at least believe in the free market. See, that's the difference. They believe in the free market, and therefore they believe that workers should have the ability to bargain. And Republicans don't even believe that. They just want to enrich themselves. They don't even care about the free market. They use the government to turn the market in their favor, to get subsidies for companies. You know what I mean? Even more than Democrats do. There is a difference there. It's not, massive in the scope of time and history, but there is a difference.
No, yeah, for sure. That is one thing that at least they say that they support labor more than the Republicans. So
it means something. At least making a statement like Biden did, it means something.
It does mean something.
Yeah, doesn't mean a lot, but
it's better than nothing. It's not much better than nothing, but it is better than nothing.
That's the state of our politics right now, folks.
it's just better than nothing. It's better than Trump going out there and talking about how just sending people out there to start gassing the streets where the picket line is, so you can walk across the street and hold a Bible up.
Let's see what we got here. Nutri-Grain Incognito. Oh, Morningstar Farms is also Kellogg's, apparently. That's a big frozen food brand. Fruit Loops, Cheez-Its, Apple Jacks, Club Crackers, Pop-Tarts, Frosted Wheats, Mini Wheats.
I don't buy any of these products.
What else we got? Pop-Tarts, Pringles. Load more. We own everything. We're Kellogg's. Townhouse Crackers, Zesta, those are the saltines. Yeah, they own a lot of shit.
So I do buy Zesta saltines, and I will switch to the off-brand. One time a year I spend $1 on crackers. They will not get my $1 a year. Good.
There's a couple of potential money-making opportunities for you here, Tony.
Uh-oh.
There are some class action lawsuits going on. 2 of them, in fact, right now. The chicken price fixing conspiracy, which was also initiated under the Biden administration.
I promise you, the president has a big stick.
Here's from a Justice Department press release in July. I believe this started. A federal grand jury in Denver, Colorado, returned an indictment in July charging Koch Foods, headquartered in Park Ridge, Illinois, for participating in a nationwide conspiracy to fix prices and rig bids for broiler chicken products. And separately, a federal grand jury in Denver returned an indictment charging 4 executives for their roles in the same conspiracy. Interesting fact, none of the articles I found were publishing photos of the executives charged. I guess when you're wealthy in this country, the journalistic instinct is to automatically protect you from scrutiny. There is a class action lawsuit currently going on. I don't know, they haven't announced any awards yet for any of this, but there are. Let me put it up for which states. I'll put the link in the description of the video too. If you are a resident of Washington, D.C., California, Florida, Hawaii, Illinois, Iowa, Kansas, Maine, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, Missouri, Nebraska, Nevada, New Hampshire, New Mexico, New York, North Carolina, Oregon, Rhode Island, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, Utah, or Wisconsin, go to overchargedforchicken.com to file a claim.
Okay.
It's not Kentucky, but it's every state around us, basically. And eventually it'll get here, because there's a bunch of companies involved in this. Basically what they were doing was there was this published list of like prices that all the companies could access and use, and they were coordinating. They have internal documents, communications, where they admit to it, basically.
Where they're just like, hey, let's all keep the prices together. We'll all raise them.
But since 2011, they've been coordinating. They're actually facing criminal charges. Some of these guys could potentially get jail time. Probably never happen, but
yeah.
Pilgrim's Pride, Purdue. All the defendants face charges of conspiring to restrain trade. Little is also charged with obstruction of justice for allegedly lying to federal agents. That charge has a top penalty of 20 years in prison.
Wouldn't it be amazing if all of a sudden a bunch of CEOs of major corporations ended up actually going to prison?
It's pretty cool to see them at least being charged for this shit. They weren't even being charged with it. Since 2011, they've been fixing the price of chicken, dude.
Yeah.
And they talk about free market and all this nonsense. This is what they're doing behind the scenes, dude.
Yeah, of course. It's a rigged game. Obviously. This is how they rig it. They work together.
Yeah, but we criticize the free market, but they pretend like they defend the free market, and they don't even believe in the damn thing.
Yeah, there was the light bulb conspiracy. I don't know. Have you ever heard about that? Like back in the 20s, there was like 3 companies that made light bulbs. There are places today that have light bulbs that were made like in 1900, 1910 that are still working. The original light bulbs that they made, they would last forever just because of the materials that they were using. And there's basically like 3 or 4 different companies, big companies that made light bulbs around the world. And they got together and they said, hey, we have to stop making products that last for 100 years. The Fobus Cartel. Yeah. So the Fobus Cartel is this group of people. They got this group of light bulb companies. They get together and they basically just set the prices and they set the obsolescence date on all their products. So this type of light bulb, we are going to make it last between 9 to 12 months, and then it has to go down. And if you start making a product that's better than everybody else's product, then all the other guys are going to come down on you. You know, it's the exact opposite of what the Republicans and libertarians would say, you know, how the free market operates. It's not them competing with one another because it's in their best. I mean, they're using kind of game theory. We're all going to work together to raise the price so that we can all get the most out of this stuff. But
yeah, because
I don't know, it's interesting. It's just went on forever.
If there's no restriction in place to prevent it, of course they're going to. Of course they are.
Yeah.
It's a competition. They want to win, dude.
When you have industries like this that have a really high bar to entry, you know, you can't. All right, if you're a light bulb manufacturer, you know, there's 5 of them. It's really easy for 5 companies to work together for everybody's mutual benefit. Now, if it's something like if you've got an ice cream stand where, you know, anybody new off the block can come in and just kind of start doing it and can compete with your prices, and industries like that, they tend to be a little bit more fair because you can have people coming in and kind of upsetting the apple cart, so to speak. But yeah, with stuff like this, if you're a giant chicken manufacturer or chicken processor or light bulb or whatever, I mean, there's only a couple of you, and everybody can kind of work together, and you can, you know, kind of set the industry standards such that you keep other people from being able to get into that industry. You know, you don't want new manufacturers to be coming around and making better products at a cheaper price. So, yeah, I mean, it's anti-capitalistic, really. I'm arguing it for capitalism, free market.
This is a great argument for worker ownership over the means of production as well. I mean, cooperatives, if every employee at Purdue had a vote, they're not going to try to screw over their neighbors and their family who buy the chicken, you know.
One would hope.
There's also this Zoom class action lawsuit. Apparently they got hacked and personal data got out there. So if you used or downloaded Zoom in the last year, you can get $15.
Woohoo.
ZoomMeetingsClassAction.com. Free $15. You just have to fill out. You have to have like screenshot where you downloaded it or used it or whatever.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Free money.
Is it worth? Is it?
It's not free. They got your data, but
Yeah, my data's already out there. Let's be
You might get
realistic. There's nothing they got off Zoom that's not that you didn't already willingly post.
you might have your identity stolen, and somebody racks up credit card charges on you. But $15.
Yeah,
Hey,
well, I had an ex-wife for that. So, hey, have you ever gotten any money from a class action?
I don't recall. Maybe. I feel like I have, but it's been a long time.
Yeah, I got what was it? Manpower. It was a
It's a temp agency, right?
temp agency. Yeah, a temp agency that I worked for a very, very long time ago on a couple of jobs, and they had some discriminatory hiring practices. Yeah, basically, I think it had to do with denying certain people jobs based on background checks that they weren't supposed to run or weren't supposed to use for their hiring. Yeah, I kind of fell into the category, and I don't know, it was like $100-something that I got at some point. I did miss out on some jobs too because of it, specifically because
Oh,
I was an out of control criminal at that time, and I had a very long record. So
I googled your name and decided not so much.
we don't want to trust this guy with anything.
Billionaire Steinhardt surrendered $70 million of antiquities, accepting collecting ban. So he was a rich guy who bought a bunch of stolen artifacts.
Yeah, that's he's I guess he's a very famous collector. He's a billionaire hedge fund manager, and I guess it seems like he was very notorious for buying very shady antiquities from all these, like the shady stuff, antiquities, stuff that's obviously stolen. Stuff
Oh,
from the Middle
interesting.
East, but
Is this the guy right here? Is this his photograph?
Yeah, obviously.
Okay. Obviously. Like, hey, I didn't know.
Yeah. Let's see.
I didn't know all these Jewish artifacts were from stolen from the Nazi Holocaust.
There's a lot of stuff recently that's been coming out of Iraq, places like that.
Yeah, I know, man.
Yeah. So, anyways, it's kind of interesting. It's weird how I think it's weird how we determine like what is and isn't fair game for buying and selling. Because I know, like here in the U.S., there's a lot of controversy with the Native American people. They feel like certain cultural artifacts of their own, arrowheads, or usually a little bit more ornate stuff than that shouldn't be bought or sold. And then you would have the same arguments. There's a lot of stuff comes out of Egypt, for example, places that don't have really the infrastructure to really tightly control their borders. I guess I don't know. Do they have a claim? Should they be upset? Should Native Americans today, like living in Oklahoma, really have any reason to be upset about something that's a 5,000-year-old artifact leaving that area? I mean, realistically, they're not real. It's a totally different ethnic group that lived there at the time. There's constant flux. It's probably has nothing to do with their ancestor. It's a completely different culture than they lived. It's the same thing with the Egyptians. The people living in Egypt now are not most likely not even descended from the people that were building the pyramids. They're completely different ethnic groups, genetic groups, kind of down the line. They just happen to occupy the same space. So,
Well, I think their argument.
That's how I feel about it.
There's two things. I think the argument is that they don't want it in private hands because then it's not going to be taken care of or preserved. For one, I assume.
Yeah, I mean that's part of it. I think it's also there's the idea of just a general cultural disrespect, and I think there's from what I understand, especially in the Native American context, and I guess in the kind of Middle Eastern context too, there's a sense of like kind of communal ownership and like a cultural ownership they have over these items, and I don't know. I kind of get it, and I kind of don't. I feel like it's more of a. It should be more universal. Like it's if something's old enough, it's everybody's, and everybody should have an interest in it, not just the place that it happened to come from.
Certainly, the person who doesn't have any ownership stake over it is the hedge fund billionaire Michael Steinhardt, who just had so much extra cash that he could just buy up all the historical artifacts from this genocided culture. I don't think he has any right to it whatsoever, frankly.
Right. So,
I mean, 1 in 8 billionth, whatever.
No, yes. So he doesn't. He definitely doesn't have any right to it. But all right. So this is my question. This is also just an opportunity for me to show off some shit. So I got into buying antiquities. I don't know, like 6 years ago. I always really liked Viking stuff. There's all sorts of stuff online from reputable dealers. But I got this. It is a bronze ring. It is about somewhere between 900 and 1000 AD. This braided bronze bracelet. Got silver pieces. I don't know, stuff like that. And of course, there's also like arrowheads. These are obviously not Viking. These are local. But yeah, I mean, so obviously all billionaires are assholes. But what about people like me that are buying these small personal collections like this? You know, is there something inherently ethically wrong with doing this? With you know, like this one right here, I found this not here in Kentucky, lying on the ground. I mean, it was not an archaeological dig, so I took it out of the context for future generations to see what was going on in that area. And that's one of the main complaints with people doing these solo digs is you're messing up the archaeological context of where these artifacts are sitting. And all these Viking era Scandinavian artifacts I bought, they come from like the eastern part in Finland that are like half failed Soviet states. So they have very loose laws on exporting these types of things.
Huh. Well, that one you had there would look serrated. That was kind of cool. Was that like a serrated arrowhead?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. That's
cool, man. That'd do some damage.
Yeah. And then of course, there's the other, this is kind of messed up. This is an actual human finger bone. So.
Okay, that's probably cursed.
Yeah, it definitely is. My penis hasn't worked since I got it, so that's all I know.
Oh, shit. I don't know if I keep that thing around, buddy.
It's too cool not to.
Well, it's an interesting argument because on the one hand, you could say, well, this is a natural resource, like, for example, gold. You know, you find a piece of gold, sure, but, you know, you discover a gold mine, and then all of a sudden you're like a million times richer than everyone around you. That, you know, society has some sort of collective claim over it. But this doesn't really have any use. There's no use case for like artifacts like that, is there? I mean,
it's harder to make a case for something like an arrowhead because there's millions and millions and millions.
Exactly. I think that's the difference. Yeah.
When you get to something like the looting that happened in the Baghdad after 2003, after we invaded, and the Baghdad antiquities just got looted. I mean, some of the stuff there, like the Code of Hammurabi, gets stolen and smashed up. I mean, I feel like the world lost something with that. And so this is the point I was getting at, is that I'm not as worried about I don't have as much sympathy with the individual people living in Iraq. I feel like it is something that the world that we should all own.
Well, sure, yeah.
So,
well, that's the argument. It's not like the government of Iraq is going to resell the thing. It's for posterity, to preserve the culture and whatnot. You know, history.
Yeah.
Seems like we're pretty much on the same page with it.
Yeah, I think so.
But yeah, in general, I think the historical value of an arrowhead is a lot different than the historical value of something like the Code of Hammurabi.
Okay. All right. Now, here's the big ethical question I'm going to ask you. All right. So you're George Bush, 2003. You've only got so many troops there in Iraq. You can leave 200 troops at the museum to guard against looters, or you can have those 200 troops out in the street guarding the people. Just a certain area of the city, let's say. Which is more important? Which do you protect?
Oh, that sucks. That's a terrible decision to have to make.
Yeah, I would say I would protect the artifacts over the people.
Interesting.
I think those thousands of years of cultural heritage that the world has, like we were saying, just the heritage of it is so much more important than any one individual person.
All right.
Anyway,
You're a terrible person, I think, Tony.
yeah, probably. I like things more than people, I guess.
You're also cursed, so it's not surprising that you would come to that conclusion. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are interested in nootropics, check out my website. I have extended free shipping until Christmas because I am in that holiday spirit. So ho, ho, ho. Come get your nootropics. MetamaxPerformance.com.
ShireHempFarms.com, your #1 source for CBD and Delta 8 products. Come check us out right now. We've got the lowest prices around. Do your holiday shopping with us, support local farms, and support the podcast. Thanks. Shire Hemp Farms.
The Islamic Republic of Iran. And Iran means land of the Aryans. This is the original source of the term Aryans, was the Iranian people. So the median income is $443.60. This is in international dollars, which is pretty close to U.S. dollars, but it doesn't take into account buying power. And in the U.S., the median income is $19,000, roughly. Unemployment rate in Iran, 11%. So that's fairly high. And one of the important ones I wanted to look at this week was the union rights. There's this ITUC report they come out with every year that sort of details the right to strike, which is pretty important when it comes to union rights. If you can't strike, it's not really a union. We'll cover that some with China, like they have what they call unions, but if the unions can't strike, they don't really have a purpose, do they? They can just sort of ask for stuff. And Iran is a 5. That means there's no guarantee of rights whatsoever, of union rights.
In November 2019, bloody protests erupted around Iran following the government's decision to double the price of fuel in the country. In response, the government shut off the internet for a whole week, and a brutal crackdown by the government ensued. According to Amnesty International, at least 143 people were killed during the unrest.
But Iran has the highest number of paid leave days per year, paid vacation days, 53 per year. Pretty sweet, man. If you have a job, if you're not one of the 11% unemployed. Yeah, they have pretty decent social welfare programs. Human Development Index. This is the quality of life index, basically. So they take into account pollution, they take into account availability of goods, as well as GDP. And they are a 78%. And the scale goes basically from 50 to 100, sort of. So they're a 78. They're somewhere in the middle. Child labor, percent of children in the workforce, 14%, fairly high. Homelessness per 10,000, 1.9. This is top 10 in the world. They have very, very few homeless. And their GDP per capita, PPP, so this is adjusted for the price of goods and inflation. So this is a very good proxy for standard of living, is 13,513 per person. And they are number 123 out of 226. So again, somewhere in the middle for standard of living. And here are some fun facts. Iranians aren't Arabic. They are actually Persian. They speak Farsi, not Arabic. Iran has subsidized college, subject to pretty stringent entrance exams. You have to pass pretty hard tests to get into the higher tiers. But they do have 5 of the top 1,000 best universities in the world. The Iranian government subsidizes gender reassignment surgery in Iran, the only Middle East country to do so. However, there are a lot of discrimination against gay LGBTQ people as well. So, and it's a hell of a process to go through. I was reading about it earlier to try to get the surgery.
I'm sure they don't make it very easy.
Your parents have to approve of it, and there's all these different things you have to do. It's crazy.
Huh.
Um,
And you said they've got government subsidized college.
yeah, all the way up to the doctorate, all of it. Yeah, but you have to pass tests to get into the better universities. Obviously, they have
What is
private
it,
and public schools.
But the only doctoral programs are burning American flags, though, right? Shout death to America and grow a pretty nice beard.
Durka Durka, Muhammad Jihad, Haka Sherpa Sherpa, Bakala. Oh, Durka Durka Durka.
I might say.
Iran houses the largest number of refugees in the world, over 1 million from the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. And that's Iran. So kind of a mixed bag, pretty fundamentalist, but very anti-imperialist. It's an interesting case.
Yeah.
The history's very interesting. I'm sure you know some of it with the Shah, the overthrow of the Shah and the revolution.
Yeah, I would have not expected that. The average paid leave days per year, 53. That's
Highest in the world.
I wonder if there's some religious reasons behind that, or if there's certain religious holidays, religious months where they're just given off kind of by proxy, or I don't know. It's just interesting.
The beginning of labor reforms in Iran began under the Shah in 1962 and provided a social safety net for Iranians. Immediately after the revolution, many of the demands of the Islamic Workers' Council was written into the new constitution, such as limiting working hours, providing interest-free loans for cooperatives, and aid programs for the disabled and poor. The labor law in 1990 even mandated that management had to seat labor representatives on the board of directors. Most of these reforms were reversed in 2004 by the conservative government. While unions in Iran are possible, there are no legal protections and no right to strike. There is a state-sponsored labor advocacy organization which does lobby for workers' rights in the government. The labor law itself is designed to protect workers against unjust firing and wage theft. All firings must be approved by the Islamic Labor Council, and the employee must be given warnings in writing. There is no mandatory overtime allowed, and the work week is 44 hours. Women in Iran are given 90 days of paid maternity leave. That's compared to 0 days in the United States. Low-cost basic health care is provided to all Iranians by the Ministry of Health, and private hospitals are available to those that can afford them. While not universal, Iran does have a fairly extensive network of public and private social safety net programs, including unemployment, disability coverage, and pensions for the elderly. This is a pro-government rally after a U.S. drone strike killed Iran's top general, Qasem Soleimani, in Iraq during the last year of the Trump administration. This is a huge gathering. Look at this pro-government rally. I should mention here that there was also a reformist rally right afterwards. There are plenty of progressive, in particular, a lot of women's movements in Iran and other reformist and labor activist movements.
Wow.
All right. Next up.
It's almost as if drone strikes cause more people to hate us instead of cause fewer people to hate us.
The PRC, People's Republic of China.
Ooh, this is the one I was looking forward to.
The industrialization process has been horrific for every country who has been able to go through it. Mines are built to produce ore. Foundries are built to produce metals to make machines used to harvest the fields more efficiently, reducing the price of food. This way, many farmers are driven off their land and into the cities to work in the factories that make the machines. Once industrialization has taken place, the society sees a large increase in their standard of living. But the process of getting there is brutal. In the United States, for example, workers had to fight and die for their right to have a weekend, to have safety standards, and to form unions. In China, the process has been no different.
Median income, $48.13, fairly low. This is in U.S. dollars, not international dollars. Their unemployment rate, 4.9%, so about standard for a developing country. They're on the cusp. Union rights, a 5. No guarantee of rights. That's not as high as the scale goes, but it's the top. It's at the top.
Labor unions in China are illegal, with the exception of the All China Federation of Trade Unions. Their primary role is to distribute social welfare benefits and have had little interest in collective bargaining. This body has been unable to respond to the demands of workers, leading to extensive labor unrest and repressive government crackdowns. Working conditions in the special economic zones are especially brutal, with very little enforcement of the legal protections that are in place to protect workers. These are the areas where foreign investors are able to open manufacturing facilities and hire Chinese workers, and these are primarily the areas where the labor struggles have taken place.
Average paid leave days per year in PRC, 20. 20 days per year average. That's an average. I'm sure I will get some comments as to how all these numbers are wrong. I did quite extensive research to try to get the most accurate numbers here, guys. So, but if I got it wrong, point it out, please. The Human Development Index, again, this is the quality of life measure. 76%. They are number 85 out of 189 countries. Child labor, 6.6%. So, China's a huge country, man. There's a lot of different factors that play into these, and there's a lot of different ethnicities and cultures.
China has a long and rich history of peasant uprisings and labor struggles. Although the government crackdown is usually less severe than in other developing countries, it has nevertheless been sufficient to maintain the rule of law.
China is it is so interesting because it's really broken down into like very advanced first world nations and like completely backwards third world countries at the same time. Like, you know, there's kind of the northwest regions of China where it's basically any other
very few people
European,
live. Yeah,
Kazakhstan or Afghanistan, and then you've got kind of the southeast where it's, you know, super developed, super first world. So
new labor laws in 2008 that were opposed by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce set out to enforce worker protections and enable collective bargaining. In general, these laws are still weakly enforced in the special economic zones. However, several strikes were allowed to happen since 2008. A few strikes were permitted against foreign companies, including a Honda plant and a Toyota plant. Nevertheless, working conditions in the special economic zones are extremely harsh and often violate Chinese labor law, and authorities in these regions have shown little appetite for upsetting foreign investors by enforcing the law against bosses.
Well, they have a fifth of the world's population, you know. It's a huge country. Homelessness per 10,000, 18. The U.S. is 17.7, so about equivalent to the U.S. as far as homelessness goes. And their GDP per capita adjusted, this is the standard of living, is 18,931. They are number 100 out of 226. So that's pretty darn good for Asia. I'll put it that way. So fun facts for China. They have the highest sustained economic growth in world history. From the start of the first 5-year plan under Mao Zedong in 1953 until 2020, their per capita GDP has grown from $55 to $10,000. And another fun fact about China. In China's Shaanxi province, many homes are built into caves. Pretty cool.
Ooh.
I would love that.
That'll be my next project.
Don't have to put a new roof on it, man. Like a little hobbit hole.
Dude, I would love to have a hobbit home.
I think the cave must have already been there and they just kind of carved out the doors, right? You can't carve out a whole freaking cave.
I've seen videos of people that actually do this. Or they'll take like they'll take a natural cave and they'll just kind of widen it out, and then, you know, over time they'll add extra rooms. I feel like it really depends on the type of stone that you're digging into.
That's a good point. It has to be firm enough not to cave in, though, too. But
yeah, but you don't want to be like trying to dig into granite to where you're just not going to have any luck. So.
Well, you need Elon Musk to get the TBM in here to bore these things out, you know.
Yeah, come on, Elon. I know you're saving the world everywhere else. Make us hobbit homes too.
In China's Xinjiang province, a Muslim minority group has been targeted by the government as terrorists, and according to a report published by the Australian Strategic Policy Institute, up to 80,000 Uyghur Muslims have been used as slave labor, producing goods for companies including Abercrombie & Fitch, Adidas, Amazon, Apple, BMW, Fila, Gap, Nike, North Face, and Samsung. I think that if we are going to point out the atrocities against Muslims committed by our own country, we should also be willing to point out the atrocities committed by our rivals as well.
United Mexican States, Mexico.
This is United Mexican States?
That's the official name.
Yeah. I feel like they shouldn't be able to take it. We're the only United States in America.
Nafta was a free trade agreement with the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. Nafta removed most tariffs from American exports to Mexico, and many tariffs from American imports from Mexico. The enormous legislation achieved many things for the business class. One of the more insidious was to remove all tariffs on American food exports to Mexico. This arrangement allows American agribusiness companies to outcompete native Mexican farmers for market share. This drives farmers into the cities to work for the very corporations who drove them out of business. And since wages are much lower in Mexico than in the United States, companies like Kellogg's are more than happy to close up shop and move production down south at the first hint of a union drive.
Well, they are. When Trump talks about shithole countries, this is what he's talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the one. They have a median income of $3,315 compared to the U.S.'s $19,000. Unemployment rate of 4.7%, pretty low for a poor country like Mexico. Their union rights on the ITUC scale, 1 being really good and 5 being no union rights, they are a 3. So this is considered regular violations of rights, but they do have some union rights.
One addendum added to Nafta to pacify liberals in Congress was the North American Agreement on Labor Cooperation. This agreement formed bodies that were intended to provide oversight on the country's respective enforcement of labor law. Under the agreement, each country had to adhere to basic labor rights, such as the right to collectively bargain, the right to strike, and some basic worker safeties.
Unlike previous examples, average paid days of leave per year, 13 days. So a little bit less than 2 weeks on average. Human Development Index. Again, this is the Quality of Life Index, 78%, middle of the road. Child labor, percent of children working in the under 16 age category, 5.6%, not too bad.
Mm-hmm.
Homelessness per 10,000, 35.4. This is in the middle of the range as far as homelessness goes, and their GDP per capita, which is the standard of living, is 20,000. 91 out of 226.
Just for context, on the average paid leave per year, what's the U.S. at? Do you know? Do you have those numbers? It's actually 9.7 days, but they round up. This does not include 6 days or paid holidays.
Let's see if that's the same number I got. I averaged whatever I could find.
Or
10.
is it paid leave
10.
or just leave?
Average paid leave days per year on average. So 10 for the U.S., yeah.
Yeah.
And Mexico's is
13. China's was 20.
Now here's an
And
interesting.
Iran was 53.
And Iran's 53, yes. The U.S. is among the lowest in the world. It is the lowest in the industrialized world.
You mean we're number one?
Well,
That's what you
yeah.
meant to say.
If it's
Number
golf,
one.
yeah. All right, is it gonna work?
Seems all right.
I'm gonna talk quietly so I don't anger it.
Don't want to upset the camera.
There was an interesting statistic I dug up here. There's a number I didn't put in this graphic because I couldn't get accurate numbers for every country. There's a statistic called average hours per week worked. So the United States average hours per week worked. That's hard to say. 41.5 in the United States. 41.5. China 48.6. And who else did we cover already?
Iran.
I couldn't get that number for Iran. Mexico was the highest though, 48.5. Okay, well it's about the same as China. 48.5 in Mexico, average hours per week worked.
A study in 2014 by Robert E. Scott of the Economic Policy Institute estimated that the U.S. trade deficit resulting from Nafta policies displaced 851,700 jobs by May 2013. This directly contradicted the claims made by proponents of Nafta prior to its signing. According to Scott, growing trade deficits and job displacement, especially between the United States and Mexico, were the result of a surge in outsourcing of production by U.S. and other foreign investors. This means that, without tariffs on imports, companies simply moved production to Mexico where labor costs were much lower. Thanks to a complete lack of consideration that neoliberal trade policy has for the environment, it was actually cheaper to make the stuff in Mexico and then ship it back to the United States in semi-trucks.
Very high number of hours worked in Mexico. And if you dig into the statistics a little bit further, it's even more stark in Mexico. They work very long hours, man. And not a whole lot of time off, as we saw there. Fun facts about Mexico. Mexican children don't get gifts on Christmas. They get gifts on January 6th, because that's when the wise men gifted 5-pound, 9-ounce baby Jesus the frankincense and myrrh.
Dear 8-pound, 6-ounce newborn infant Jesus, don't even know a word yet.
On January 6th.
Makes sense, being biblically accurate.
Fun fact. Tenochtitlan, capital of the mighty Aztec Empire dating back to 8000 BC, was built on an island in the middle of a lake. The Europeans filled the lake in with dirt and built Mexico City on top of it. Why not? Why not? There's the mighty Tenochtitlan, the Aztec Empire. What could have been, Tony? They thought that smallpox was their gods angry at them.
Yeah, that's probably what it felt like.
Today, Mexico's southernmost state, Chiapas, is home to a majority population of Native Americans. This region has been governed by direct democracy since the EZLN, also known as the Zapatistas, declared their intent to self-govern after multiple promises to raise the standard of living for Mexico's indigenous population went unfulfilled.
Last May, Mexican troops discovered a Zapatista stronghold, but after a brief skirmish, they let the guerrillas get away. Why?
We think because the Nafta.
NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement, was being debated in the U.S. Congress. Marcos says the Mexican government couldn't afford any bad publicity, certainly not a guerrilla war, and so they made a political decision to let the Zapatistas get away.
Just imagine if it was still there, if the Aztecs and the Incas were still around. That would have been awesome, man. It's unfortunate.
No, it would. I've mentioned this before. On my newsfeed, I get all the new archaeology stuff coming out, and they just found some new, they're doing some road work in Mexico City and found like some giant carved stone from Tenochtitlan.
I'm fascinated by this stuff, man.
It was pretty
Median
amazing.
income, 5,504. Yeah. Unemployment rate, 4.6, so pretty standard. Their union rights are a 3.
After the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991, the country of Russia was attempting to turn the nation into a market economy. Boris Yeltsin attempted to implement IMF policies of market liberalization, leading to 2,000% inflation. Stocks were issued to many previously government-owned companies which were immediately bought up by organized crime bosses. Billions of dollars of Soviet wealth was stolen from the public coffers and taken out of the country. Other public companies were handed to Boris Yeltsin's friends and allies for pennies on the dollar. While Yeltsin and his cronies were transformed into the new economic elite, the rest of Russia went into a crushing, decade-long depression exacerbated by harsh austerity programs that pulled the rug out from under working people in Russia.
The same as Mexico. Regular violations do occur, but they do have union rights.
Unions were formed by Lenin in the early days of the revolution, but by the Stalin era they had little power in the economy. They did, however, serve a useful function as social gathering places and dispensed the benefits owed to employees. After the collapse of the USSR, the FNRP replaced the ACCTU as the governing body of the trade union system in Russia. The FNRP was eventually let into the AFL-CIO in 1997 and was accepted as an affiliate with the ITUC in 2000. However, the FNRP is still a body that is designed to, quote, promote harmony in the workplace, and most active labor struggles are undertaken by the independent unions in the country. These independent labor union actions are not considered legal due to the role of the Russian courts and Russian labor law. Therefore, labor activists are often fired, harassed, or assaulted with little legal protection. Estimates put total union membership at 35%. However, if you only count independent union membership, the number is closer to 3.5%.
Average paid leave days per year, 45. 45 days per year in Russia, top 10 in the world. Human Development Index, this is the quality of life, is at 82%. 52 out of 189. Quite high. Child labor, however, is at 19%. They do have a lot of children working there. Homelessness per 10,000, 4. And again, for comparison, the U.S. is 17.7 per 10,000. So, and their GDP per capita, which is the standard of living, is 29,485. That's 74 out of 226, quite high as well. They have a lot of the laws remain from when they were a federated Soviet Socialist Republic. So, for example, the union rights. They got rid of the law that was illegal to be homeless, so they do have homeless now, but like a lot of the social safety net stuff is still there.
I wanted to point out here, and I forgot to mention in the show, that it is still illegal in Russia to evict someone from their home.
And until Putin, in I think it was 2011, Putin raised the retirement age to 70. It was 60. It was quite low for a long time.
Yeah, this is the one I was really curious about. I mean, obviously, Russia, home of the OG Workers' Revolution. And yeah, it seems like things look pretty middle of the road. I mean, obviously, except for the paid leave days per year, but I feel like it's
Well,
kinda
the
made
standard
up
of
for.
like the quality of life is high too from all the worker protections and stuff. I think.
Really, I don't know. I feel like Russia's another one of those countries that there's like stark differences between one side of the country and the other. I mean, I think like on the far western border where Moscow and all those places are, it's pretty developed, and like everywhere else is just
Yeah.
Siberia and third
Well,
world
yeah.
poverty. I'm sure that's where a lot of the child labor is coming in too.
Well, in terms of poverty, it's not so bad because, like I said, they still have a lot of the social safety net stuff there. Now, the quality of like the hospitals aren't going to be as good out in Siberia. Obviously, that goes for any of these examples of huge countries, including the United States. Although it's probably not as stark here because we are more
Yeah,
developed, but in terms of development, is in like industrialization, Russia was ahead of the United States for a long time till the 80s, really. Fun facts: Russia won the space race with the first human in space and the first artificial satellite. Russia is the biggest country and is actually bigger than Pluto. Its landmass is bigger than Pluto. Russia
they
spent.
didn't realize that
Go
they
ahead.
didn't realize that the only thing that counted was putting a man on the moon.
Oh, of course, that's the real space race.
We're going to win the space race by putting the first artificial. All right, we lost that. All right, we're going to get the first man. Oh, we lost that one too. All right, so guys, the only thing that really counts is getting the first man on the moon, and that's what we won.
And we never went back.
And we never went. All right,
It was
and
so important.
History's written by the winners, and we wrote ourselves down as the winners of that. So
Yeah.
I think that's how it works.
Russia has expanded Article 20 of their constitution in recent decades. This is known as the Protest Article. According to a study published by OVD Info between 2004 and 2018, over 30,000 defendants were found guilty of protest-related violations. The fines associated with these violations increased by tenfold over the same period. Multiple violations carry up to 5 years in jail. According to the study's authors, protest activities have been the target of increasing government crackdown by police in recent years.
Fox, the Russian red fox. They are about $9,000 to import one.
Oh no! Do you know the story behind this?
No, I didn't go that deeply.
Okay, this is boxes for their fur, and export them. So they were doing all sorts of experiments, but one of the things that they were doing is they were making the foxes as domesticated as possible, so that they were easier to like get a hold of and strangle and kill, so that they could skin them and sell their skins. That was basically the story.
That doesn't sound that's not what I read.
Okay.
I read that this was a project dating back to like I said for
like
decades.
Like the 40s or 50s, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they were fur farms, and they had scientists coming there.
I didn't read about the
That
fur
was
farm.
my
That's interesting.
That's why they were there to begin with. They were fur farms, and they were doing these different experiments. One of them was he just wanted to see how quickly he could domesticate them, whatever the guy's name is, the scientist.
Yeah.
But the practical reason was, just like with the beagles, why they use beagles for beagle studies is that they wanted them to be docile so that they weren't difficult to,
Come here.
murder.
You have your skin, fox.
But yeah, and as they domesticated,
I would say that their behavior is similar to that of cats. The fox can jump on tables, he steals all kinds of things and then hides them somewhere.
the foxes started taking on dog-like characteristics. So their ears become floppy, their tails would start wagging and hanging down, and like within not that long, maybe 4 or 5 generations, they took on a really dog-like mannerism.
Well, what I read, this was like 2011. There was articles coming out that said they had finally done it. Like they had finally found the genetic line that was stable and whatnot as a domesticated breed. And you can buy them now. They're $9,000, but you can buy them.
No, so they've got them for. That's crazy.
It
I
looks
guess
like a
just to
dog.
the general public.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm sure there's a limited supply. I mean, if you're a freaking hedge fund billionaire, there you go.
Dude, I would get one.
It would be cool.
Yeah, heartbeat.
They're cute when they're babies.
Make a lovely hat.
I don't know if I could make a hat out of my dead pet's fur. Plus, when they're old, their fur's probably not as nice.
No, that's why you kill it when it's young.
Strangle it when it's young.
Yeah. Get you a fresh fox puppy and just strangle it.
All right. Syria. Syria. The Syrian Arab Republic. This was another interesting one, a mixed bag situation here. And this is a country that's been ravaged by a decade of civil war and proxy war, so that explains some of these numbers. Median income, $708. Unemployment rate, 50%. Their union rights is a 5+. That's the top of the list. There are no rights whatsoever because of the breakdown of the rule of law. Average paid leave days per year, 37. So this is the top third of the world. It's pretty high.
How does this happen?
What's that?
How do all these other countries have all these paid leave days per year and we don't?
Well, because all these countries they pretend like they're socialist.
Throw a bunch of paid leave days at people to make them feel like they're being taken care of as workers while the rest of the rights are kind of trampled on. So maybe something like that.
The senior Assad instituted social reforms, such as land reform, labor standards, such as working hours, minimum wage, and the right to collectively bargain. Nevertheless, working conditions in Syria are horrible due to the collapse of the economy. Many millions of workers fled the country to seek a better life in Europe and elsewhere as refugees.
I mean, I'd always heard that, like in the U.S., I guess it was either July or August that you were supposed to, it was tradition amongst people to take the month off, in the city.
They don't have work ethic, Tony. You got to have work ethic. Human Development Index. This is the Quality of Life Index. 56%. 151 out of 189. Very low. Child labor, 6.6%. Homelessness per 10,000, 3,753. Over a third of their population is homeless right now. GDP per capita. This is the standard of living. 6,373. 177 out of 226. And like I said, these numbers would be a lot nicer, a lot higher pre-Civil War, obviously.
Capital punishment is legal in Syria for a variety of crimes, including treason, insubordination, rebellion, being a member of the Muslim Brotherhood or the Islamic State, drug trafficking, and political dissidence. As a result, Assad has executed many political prisoners. Syria censors the internet and independent media. According to the Committee to Protect Journalists, Syria is the third most censored country in the world. Human Rights Watch called Syria's human rights record among the worst in the world. Human Rights Watch reported in 2018 that the Syrian government is responsible for the majority of 85 confirmed chemical weapons attacks. Thanks to people like Aaron Mate, there is a very popular conspiracy theory that Bashar al-Assad is a great guy who is just misunderstood, and the West should be nice to him.
The country's really been ravaged by this bombing from the United States, bombing from Russia, ISIS, the Kurds doing their thing too. So just a hot mess. It's really a shame. Some Syria facts, fun facts. A Roman theater in the city of Palmyra was almost destroyed by ISIS because of its polytheistic statues. This was a Roman gods and stuff were carved into the place, and they were destroying it. Actually, have a photograph of that. I think, yeah. This is the Palmyra Theater, a Roman theater. Very cool.
Amazing. It's very cool.
The Syrian migrant crisis is the worst humanitarian disaster since World War II. 6.8 million refugees and asylum seekers, and another 6.7 million are internally displaced in Syria.
The senior Assad instituted social reforms, such as land reform, labor standards, such as working hours, minimum wage, and the right to collectively bargain. Nevertheless, working conditions in Syria are horrible due to the collapse of the economy. Many millions of workers fled the country to seek a better life in Europe and elsewhere as refugees.
Another fun fact, the flood of refugees kicked off a wave of right-wing anti-immigrant sentiment in Europe and directly led to Brexit.
Syria was a feudal state established by the British and French in 1920 and functioned as a French colony until independence in 1946. After Israel won the 48 Arab-Israel War, the country was under the rule of a military junta. Understandably, this led to a number of leftist movements in the 50s. In 1963, the Ba'ath Party came to power after several coups d'etats and has ruled the country ever since. Baathism is sort of like progressive Arab nationalist vanguardism. After coming to power, Hafez al-Assad instituted a few progressive policies, as well as some market reforms, and was quite popular with the people. He began to consolidate power within the institution of the president, appointing family members and loyalists to positions of power within the government. In the 1980s, a major uprising began in Syria headed by the Muslim Brotherhood and anti-Assad Baathists. After attacking prominent members of Assad's inner circle, insurgents began a guerrilla campaign and captured large parts of the cities. Assad's security forces responded by massacring thousands of people in Hama. Before his death, Hafez al-Assad further opened up Syria to privatization. State-owned enterprises were never fully privatized, however, and his son, Bashar al-Assad, followed suit. He refused calls from the West to introduce private banks in Syria. As a result, Syria has largely been left out of most international trade.
There were some honorable mentions I didn't put on the list, but in general, you just believe that we need more vacation in the United States.
You could take away a lot of my rights as long as you paid me for a month and a half out of the year. And I didn't have to work. And that's the God's honest truth. I would probably give up, I don't know, one of them stupid rights like the Fourth Amendment. Search and seizure. You come to my house whenever you want. Just let me have August off. Pay me for it. Yeah, certainly in Syria. I don't know. It could be. It seems like those things could kind of go either way. They could be a sign that the country has strong labor values and is making efforts towards creating a better workplace, a better labor environment in general. It could also be a sign that the government is just trying to placate people and throw them what bones they can throw them to keep them, keep them happy and shut up, and maybe just to show off to other people, to give the appearance that things are really well there.
Well, if you want to compare to the United States, like as far as union rights go, the United States is a 4, so they are worse than Mexico. They're worse than Russia as far as union rights go.
How do they determine that number system?
This is the ITUC index. It's based on your ability to strike, how many violations, like labor violations. Yeah, this is cool, man. Now, I'm sure the violations in the United States may not be as severe as violations in, like, China or whatever.
I mean, I guess there's nothing inherently stopping anybody from striking in the U.S., but they make the system such that it's very difficult, and it's the propaganda against. It's so intense and strong.
The laws, we don't have the protections. We have things like right to work laws. We have the Taft-Hartley Act. We don't have the right. We don't have closed shops unless I think there's still a few left in the state sector, but there's no closed shops in the private sector. There's all these. I read through this whole thing. You should read through it. It's really interesting the way they go through it. There's also all the violations.
They cite Proposition 22 in 2020, in which Uber, Lyft, and DoorDash mounted an extensive campaign to block the ability of workers to join a union. They also cite surveillance of workers organizing in the United States, including Amazon, Facebook, and Google employees. They point out that under international law, all workers have the right to join a union, even though many are excluded in the United States, including migrants, domestic workers, and temporary employees. This is why the U.S. falls under the category of systematic violation of union rights.
That's why the U.S. falls in there.
Who's number one? Who's in that category?
Oh, one? Who do you think it is? It's
we'll say
Denmark, Finland, Germany, Iceland,
Oh.
Uruguay's in there. Italy.
So Uruguay and the Germanic Scandinavian countries, basically.
Yeah.
Italy.
The countries with a strong history of socialism, unsurprisingly.
Lazy bastards. Italians.
Get back to work.
They work like the people in the Lamborghini factory. They work like 5 hours a day. They come in for 2 hours. They take like a 3-hour lunch where they all get drunk, and they come for a couple hours in the afternoon and finish up their work.
Pretty much, and then they go on a 1-month vacation.
People. Yeah, those are your people too, aren't they? Yeah. So Grandpa Melorani that escaped from Italy. I understand.
It might catch up to him, dude.
The horrors that you went through over there, buddy.
It might catch up to him. The standard of living is expected to be higher in China than in Spain in 2025, the end of the next 5-year plan in China.
Huh.
The GDP per capita, not the standard of living necessarily, but the GDP per capita is supposed to be higher than Spain. It was good talking to you, man. I appreciate you coming on the show this week.
Yeah, you too, James. Fun as always. MetaMaxPerformance.com, ShowerHempFarms.com. James, will talk to you next week, buddy. Peace.
Have a good one, man. Later.
Later.